Welcome to Manga Machinations! It's episode number 490, and we're doing Movie Machinations! I'm Doc Zoo, and with me is Darfox8,
Hello, everybody.
Morgana Santilli,
Hi there.
and Seamus2389.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first ever Movie Machinations. Last week we announced we would be watching the movie Tampopo, which really doesn't have anything to do with manga, but Morgana likes this movie. And Darfox watched it last year. And so we decided to do an episode where we talk about this movie Tampopo. And we couldn't come up with a name last week, but Seamus was like, Movie Machinations. Dodoy.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so for our main segment, we will be talking about the movie Tampopo. But hello and welcome. We're streaming live on our YouTube, youtube.com/MangaMacTV. If you missed the live stream, you can always go back to the YouTube channel and check out the recording, and you'll see Darfox in his nice blue shirt.
This is the polo I used at work today, and I just didn't take it off today, so...
Am I allowed to say
Sorry.
things that you told me earlier that you revealed to the group, or about your
About my work?
condition?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm A-okay, but I had a really bad night. So I was like a zombie all day at work. But hey, actually, like, I got such bad, like, you know how like there's morning people and there's night people. Like, I'm definitely like a night person. Like, I get a bunch of like creative curiosity at night. I want to look stuff up at night and do research at night.
Same.
And I'm like, I need to be going to bed. Like, why am I suddenly interested in like, what mediums we could use to like advertise the product, or well, it's like just whatever. So my body, I was bad. Like, when I got up, I dragged myself out of bed to work, and I couldn't really call out. I could, but it'd really be like, it just sucked to do that to my coworkers, because then they'd have to come on a Saturday they weren't expecting. So I dragged myself to work, and like clockwork, like once it got like close enough to 12 o'clock, like book, I just had my second win. Like suddenly I just felt better. I just gotta get out of like, it's like 7 hours removed from when I wake up, my body like starts working, my brain starts working.
You're gonna crash so hard.
Yeah, no, I'm not, because it's nighttime
Possibly
now.
in the middle of this podcast.
No, it's nighttime now, so like I'm not gonna get sleepy until like 3 a.m. So it's just gonna be really bad for the next day.
I told Dar that he should just double down and like chug a Four Loko. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. We are back. Our recording software, Mumble, just shut down on us all. We all got booted.
Yes, I was afraid it was just me.
Dar was talking, and then it sounded like gibberish, and it wouldn't stop. And apparently, it was the same for everybody. And then suddenly we were all booted. And then brought back to life, so thank goodness it came back.
Yep, we are back.
I don't even remember what we were talking about.
I'm feeling better now. I might crash, I may
Right.
not.
TLDR. Dar feels fine.
Okay, before I forget, Dar, let's pull up the coffee page so I can thank all our supporters who buy us coffee. Because the best way to support Manga Machinations financially is to head over to... Okay, sorry everybody, we're having like major technical difficulties.
Okay, you sound better now. This is crazy.
Yep. Not sure.
If this
why it's
continues, we might have to close the stream, I'm just saying.
the stream's not doing it.
I know, but like it's Yeah, well, we'll see.
If anything, the stream might be the only way we could actually like record this at this point.
I'll let you know. But in the meantime, let's move along to some what you've been reading. And yeah, Seamus, you were out last week. Did you read anything?
No.
Okay.
So I do want to bring up one thing that Darfox said last week. He
Oh,
was on about
uh-oh.
some woman he knew, and he was like, "Oh, she reads comics and manga," and the tone of your voice, you would swear she was like, "Oh, I believe in like transubstantiation and consubstantiation at the same time."
Yeah, it's freaking weird. I worked with her for a couple of years, or probably like about a year, and we had like various like manga conversations, and I never got a hint that she bought comics, bought floppies.
Then you found out she was Protestant. You were like, "Nah, I can't be doing her
Yeah.
anymore."
Kind of.
I don't know if it's that serious.
So it's a good callback.
The way you described it, it's like, is it like I don't know, like is it just considered weird that like people, is it generally like, oh, people who read manga only read manga and people who read comics only read comics? It's like
No,
that.
not exactly. It's more like like going to a comic shop, and this is, I fully admit, this might just be my biases and my own headspace. Going to a comic shop and buying floppies is a certain amount of effort that's not required to be like a manga fan.
That's
Because
true. Manga fans are lazy.
Yeah, she was like thumbing through like the long boxes of all the stuff with these things, and I was like, "What are you doing? What are you looking for?" And she's like, "Oh, I like this. This is the one I wanted. This is." I'm like, okay. So it's just completely different. It's not so much that they're super opposite. It's more that it's just like a very different way you engage with the hobby, at least to acquire them. At least that's how it is in my brain. Are we still good? Are we robot now?
Oh, you're good.
Okay.
I was just thinking about my collection of non-manga comics. But I worked in a comic shop, so that's my excuse. But I also always read other stuff too. But I've never been a single issues collector. I have a handful because they looked appealing, but I'm not the kind of person who digs through back issues and shit. I don't have that kind of time or patience.
Even I have read some comics that are not manga. But mostly it's manga.
Nobody's perfect.
All right, Morgana, did you read anything this week?
No. I watched Howl's Moving Castle again last night.
Nice.
That's what I did.
I saw you post about that.
Yeah, that was our movie movie.
How do the young ones react to that?
The baby doesn't really know anything, pay attention at all, but Sev liked it. When I ask her on movie nights what kind of movie she wants to watch, she always asks for a sad and scary movie.
That's funny. That's really funny.
So we were like, okay, we've been trying to like go kind of swing back around, and like maybe she should get like the Disney classics in and stuff. So we did like Lion King last week.
It's a little sad. There's some sadness.
Yeah, and it's really good. Like we were watching it, like James and I were watching it too, and we're like, fuck, this is a really good movie. And like I guess the week I was gone, away at Comics Pro, they watched Frozen. And he's like, this is like totally different quality than Frozen. And like I know that there are a lot of people out there, oh, Frozen's great, it's about sisters, etc., etc. Frozen's not that good, guys. I'm sorry. Shots fired. Moana's great. Moana's really good. I feel like that one doesn't get enough credit. But man, they don't. I mean, it's again, I sound like an old lady, but they don't make them like they used to. And the Disney Renaissance was a thing for a reason. That's a good-looking movie, and an interesting movie with good music and just a great story. I don't know. Lion King,
Oh, here we go again.
Okay, sorry about the delay, everybody. You missed about maybe 15 minutes. Maybe not that long, but a while of us dealing with server issues and talking. But you didn't miss that much. I was eating a lot of chips, a lot of Pringles in the downtime because I'm hungry. That's about it. If you want to hear all like the crazy shenanigans, you should head over to that youtube.com/mangamactv.
Probably wouldn't be there either because I could cut stuff off the recording. I could trim recordings and snippet stuff out.
Okay.
So if this does by the grace of God end up being an actual podcast from here on out, I'll probably remove all of those moments.
We'll
Sorry,
see.
folks.
If it happens one more time, we're gonna scrap this and we're gonna have to do something else. So yes, Morgana, besides Howl's Moving Castle, you were talking about Lion King.
Yeah,
How it's just so much better than Frozen.
it's much better. Well, and just I'm not going to be a shill for Disney here, but there's a reason why those movies that were in like the 80s and 90s are so beloved, and they kind of stand up. And again, I'm an old lady, but the modern ones just ain't doing it for me. Moana's very good, and Kanto's very good. Luca was pretty good. I like that one, but honestly, like I don't know. Those Disney Renaissance movies just hit different, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, very nice. Dar, I will go next. I have one short thing to talk about is that I finished Piano Man, the novel I talked about last week. I read a novel without words. I mean, without pictures. That's what I meant. That wouldn't make any sense. Yeah, so Piano Man is a novel, but it is about Yukinori from Blue Giant, the manga. And it follows Yukinori from the moment he's born throughout the events of Blue Giant. And I started reading it last week. And I told Dar and Morgana that it seems pretty good. It's written by Number 8. And what I didn't know is Number 8 wrote the script for the anime movie. And so I realized that because about halfway through, Yukinori, runs into Dai and then Tamada, and it goes through the events of Blue Giant. But it started to change some things. And then I realized, oh, this is following the changes that were in the movie. Now, I'm not going to reveal those changes to Darfox and Morgana, because that's a spoiler. And I 100% am expecting us to cover the anime movie in the future.
It is inevitable.
It is. It is happening.
By hook or by crook.
But yeah, so it followed Yukinori through that. And you know what? I didn't like some of the changes. I didn't like some of the changes, guys. I can reveal some small stuff, but it makes Yukinori way more of like a sympathetic guy, especially towards Tamada. Like he was treating Tamada like a dick, but inside he was thinking, "Oh, Tamada, I want you to do better."
Oh,
I was like,
that is weird. I don't like
that
that characterization. Yeah,
yeah.
Because part of the character, he was kind of like a dickhead. But like.
But apparently he was just a dickhead because he was nervous and he wasn't sure of himself.
I mean, I'm into that kind of character generally, but like sometimes just let your assholes be assholes, Let them grow as humans. It's fine.
Especially since like that, not to give details, but that character has
a good arc in the manga. Yeah,
right.
And a destination, and it's somewhat tragic, but life goes on and stuff happens.
So some of the changes there in the novel version I didn't like as much, but overall it was very good. And a very interesting way of talking about the music and how it felt. Like using words to convey sound was very interesting. As opposed to like when we read Blue Giant, and it was like visual pictures to express sound, right? It was in general, it was very good. It was very good. I only got teary-eyed once. So pretty good. Fortunately, it's only in Japanese, so can't really recommend it to anybody.
For now.
I don't think this is gonna get a release.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of novel tie-ins have been getting English releases, but only for like,
Naruto.
well, yeah, and like Jujutsu
One
Kaisen,
Piece.
and yeah, big ones.
Do they sit at the bar and put bread in your jar and say, "Man, what are you doing here?"
Oh, Mr. Funny Man, Darfox.
I'm so
That's
funny.
my go-to song at a karaoke.
It's a pretty easy song to sing. Well, I won't say easy song to sing. I'll say easy song to remember the lyrics to.
Yes. Oh man, if Dar actually comes to Hawaii, guess where we're going?
Are you sure you and your wife will survive me singing karaoke?
It'll be fine.
I don't know. I'm gonna. Oh.
It'll be fine. If anything, I'm gonna ruin karaoke for Darfox forever.
Are you just gonna be like dictating me as I sing? Of like, no, not high
No,
enough,
no.
not low enough.
After you go with us, you'll be like, I can never go back. It will never
Oh,
top that experience.
Because I'll get like legit good singing. Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I need to say about Piano Man. It was good. I'm glad I read it. I'm surprised I read it so fast, considering it was like 600 pages. But you know, it ties very closely with the Blue Giant manga, so it was easy to read.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Dar. I guess this is a little bit of news too, but you want to talk about the passing of Akira Toriyama?
Yes, I think that it's kind of it'd be kind of wrong for me to not talk about it. Um, but I think I've had the benefit of a few days. It happened a couple of days ago. Um, so I've been able to think about it, and I also been able to see a bunch of people do like some nice posts and tributes and whatever. Um, I don't really want to try and convince anybody about like his importance, which is kind of like self-evident, or his influence, I should say, his influence, which is kind of self-evident, and obviously he's such a big deal in Japan for multiple things, even if it's like even if you just look at like video games like Dragon Quest for decades, it was like the biggest games in Japan, like literally gigantic. Um, and a big part of that was just like his art design, character design, and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, like for me, Akira Toriyama is definitely Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. Uh, and I've talked about this on and off or here and there. You've probably heard parts of these stories, but I kind of want to express me being a second generation like immigrant kid. Um, so like, and actually, Morgana Dagazu could probably relate to certain extents with this, in maybe slightly different ways. But um, having like Spanish speaking parents, I grew up in a Spanish speaking household, and I grew up in Miami. So all the other kids were literally in my same boat. Um, so we had this weird dichotomy that when we go home, we speak Spanish to our parents. When we go outside and play, we speak English to each other. And that's just the way we did it. Um, and for me, it kind of created like this weird dichotomy where I can't really, especially when I was young, less so now. I never felt I had ownership of like Spanish, even though I could speak it. Um, and I would see certain kids that were like fresh off the boat. Literally, they came off the raft. They still have like the saltwater shark hanging off their spleen.
Jesus.
And like the way they would speak Spanish, like they had this swagger to it. Um, I mean, I have plenty of swagger in English, but I never had that in, as y'all can tell. but I never had that in Spanish, to speak Spanish. To the point where, like, I think the best way I could describe it is like, you know how most of us code switch for our parents, where if you're with your parents, you probably, cuss less, or you might talk about memes less, or you just might be slightly more formal, comfortable, but more formal. You won't talk about your, whatever anime character you're thirsting for, or whatever, whatever. You see that amongst your friends.
I don't know about you, Dar, but I totally tell my parents about those anime characters I'm thirsting about.
Right.
Obviously.
But we all do a certain amount of code switching for jobs and for our parents. The best way I could describe Spanish is that I didn't have any other codes to switch to. All I had was how I spoke to my parents, and I didn't really have a casual way of conversating with my Spanish friends, except emulation of my parents and how they would talk to their friends, or Spanish TV. And I think a lot of us in our position, these so like there's a thing called no sabo kids, which actually, to be clear, I think the no sabo thing is like really toxic. I don't like it at all. But it's basically a criticism of kids who grew up in a Spanish speaking household who don't speak Spanish. They basically never learn Spanish. And no sé means I don't know in Spanish. So like if somebody who speaks English but knows very little Spanish, they might make the mistake of saying no sabo español, which is like it's incorrect grammar in Spanish, but that's where no sabo comes from. It's a criticism, and I think it's toxic. I don't like it. I think people are allowed to have their, like, they belong, and they're allowed to have their heritage even if they don't speak the language. Obviously, the language is a huge part of it, and I think, and I wish they did speak it and learn it. Just because you miss a lot. But like people in that position, that I was in a similar position, where you're in the Spanish speaking community, but you don't feel the just the comfort with Spanish, to the point where like if almost feels like you're a poser. You're like you're a poser to your own heritage. I think a lot of us find things like entertainment that we like from that language. That's kind of one of our kind of gateways into kind of becoming more familiar with ourselves, that part of ourselves. I think it's a lot of music, and for a certain generation, it was probably reggaeton, like a younger generation than me. Reggaeton is probably a huge part for like the like younger millennial, older Gen Z audience. I didn't have that. For me, it was Dragon Ball. And sorry, this is my really roundabout way to get to like back to Akira Toriyama, because it's pretty common knowledge now how big like Dragon Ball is in South America, and especially Mexico. The dub is the Spanish dub is a Mexican dub, and it's seeing Dragon Ball in Spanish, and like Dragon Ball was like my life when I was like a kid, right? And Spanish was like the best way to experience that. It just was, because I didn't know Japanese, and the closest I could get to it was going to Anime Hurricane, and buying fan subs, really expensive VHS fan subs that had like Goku saying "fuck you, I'm gonna kill you," and shit like that. I would watch those. I'd be like, "Damn, Dragon Ball Z is so hardcore in Japan. Goku's like cussing. I didn't know like Goku cussed so much. I just didn't understand. That's not.
Oh my god.
I didn't understand that it didn't work that way. So, outside of popularity, which is a relatively easy thing to measure, because you can watch merchandise, you can watch the influence it has on pop culture. You can watch sales outside of popularity and stuff like that. More specifically, that stays with me with Dragon Ball is the actual like tangible effect and kind of like a psychic buffer it gave like kids of my generation in my position, kind of connection to Spanish. And I'm not even Mexican, but when you live in Miami, it's like the Hispanic soup. You're with everybody. It's Puerto Ricans, Cubans, like it's Argentinians, everybody. and like being able to experience like the funnest and most exciting part of my day slash life in Spanish is actually like a I think a big reason why I'm relatively comfortable as a bilingual adult who speaks Spanish. It might not have broken down that way because I'm telling you, I was that kid who I was embarrassed to hear. I was embarrassed when my parents would hear me speak Spanish to like a friend or something. I only speak English to friends for some reason. It was like this weird, like mental block where it's like Spanish wasn't for me. It was just like a survival tactic to speak to my parents, um, and I really do feel that we found things like Dragon Ball, but I think music was probably the biggest thing. Music is probably the easiest thing that we found to kind of get that Spanish swagger, that casualness, that that connection with your heritage. Um, and again, I apologize if anybody's listening to this and be like what the fuck? I wanted to hear about Akira Toriyama. Well, like I mean, you could go read a Wikipedia article about Akira Toriyama's like accomplishments, which are extremely valid and like super deep. But I really I didn't want to just pay lip service to like because I've seen so many posts and I'm really not criticizing these posts. I think these posts are wonderful, but there's so many posts that are like, this is when a bunch of kids' life change, and it's a clip of like Goku going Super Saiyan or something, right? I think those posts they're fine, but I think they're disingenuous in some way, because I didn't have to wait for Toonami for him to go Super Saiyan because like literally the first thing I ever looked up on the internet was Dragon Ball Z clips. So that's what I was looking for. So I knew about Super Saiyan 3 and shit like that when we were still stuck in like the Friedrich saga. So it's like I feel that sometimes there's a lack of a depth and nuance when you talk about like what is actual impact of like this entertainment. It is culture. It is actually like like these cartoons of naked men screaming and shooting fireballs. This is like culture for a lot of reasons because we spent a lot of time with it and money on it and just drawing it and thinking about it and growing up with it, but also just the kind of connections we made. And I guess I don't know how to end this, so I'm still talking.
Yeah, my experience with Dragon Ball Z is different, but I do think in a few thoughts. One of them is I know that Dragon Ball is also very important to a lot of young black men. I think for not the same reasons you're talking about, but I think also um, as a point of connection, right? For other, for kids and um, in children's book in the children's books world, there's this thing they like to talk about when they're talking about multicultural children's books. They call them windows and doors, right? Or I'm sorry, windows and mirrors, and it's a concept that is like, here's a book about like say a Latino character. So Latino kids reading this book can see themselves in it. It's a mirror. And kids who are not Latino can read this book and it's a window into kind of learning more about what that experience might be like for some people. And I feel like it's a really when you're talking about the cultural impact of something like this, it's really fascinating because you were able to connect with your Hispanic heritage through something that has absolutely nothing to do with the Hispanics, like Spanish speaking world.
Yeah.
But that's like, that's also kind of powerful, like a powerful message about I don't want to say like, oh, people are the same everywhere. Like that's not really what I'm trying to get at, but there is, the inherent appeal of something kind of transcends the cultural barrier, or the transcends the culture in which it was created in order to expand. And yeah, like you said, it is, the cultural impact is more than the sales and the artistic influence, although that is all there and part of it. there is a very, very real impact on individuals and on the people who are consuming media, to one extent or another. And, again, I also feel like, I was sad to hear Akira Toriyama died. I have not engaged with Dragon Ball Z since I was probably 12. Um, Not for any reason other than it was, it was important to me when it was important to my friends also. And as I grew up, I found other things that matched me more. But I really feel like Dragon Ball Z, and for a whole generation, was an extremely important cultural touchstone, right? And I have to say, like, the amount of tributes I've seen on my social media is like places I wouldn't expect. Like, I follow like this history account on Instagram, and they posted it about Akira Toriyama. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, like, I mean, he's the impact is wide, right? Like, he's a big deal. Um, but I like your story because has I think that it says a lot about what happens when media is consumed and then evolves as it's interpreted and passed on.
It also speaks to because we talk about representation a lot, but like you said, it doesn't really have anything to do with Hispanic culture, any Hispanic culture, but it was available. It speaks to like access and like the whole world of fandom that was discovered because it was dubbed. You know, so that's why like the whole like dubs are always bad thing is always just like that's the head scratcher for me because it's whatever preference you might have, but like it wouldn't the fact that it was dubbed on TV for kids to watch. Um, so these kids will whether they're Hispanic or black, you, like they find these identities within them.
Yeah. Uh, I also don't know, I don't know how to close this out either. But yeah,
I'll say something real quick.
yeah.
So yeah, my first thought when I heard that he died was he was so young, like
They
still
all
too
are.
young.
Yeah.
Yeah, still had so much work to do. So had so many ideas and things that he probably wanted to do.
He was
And it really
actively
sucks.
working on Dragon Ball.
Daima, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
I follow a lot of manga artists on social media, and you better bet that every single one had something to say about Akira Toriyama. It's funny because the current greats of today all grew up reading Dr. Slump and Dragon Ball and were so inspired by like Akira Toriyama's character designs in Dragon Quest. Everyone in Japan has like a story and like a cultural relationship, like you said, Dar, and connection to Akira Toriyama. So it is it's really nuts how much influence and how outreach, I guess I would say, he had. Not just in Japan, though, of course, across the world. It's very sad.
Yeah, he's one of those. I think there's a handful of them, and him, Rumiko Takahashi. Um, like I'm trying to think of like
It's pretty much like if you're talking at a world scale, it's I say Akira Toriyama is probably at the top,
Yeah.
and then Rumiko Takahashi, like you said, Dar.
Sailor Moon is also very very big.
Mhm.
Uh, um, but yeah, I have trouble thinking of anybody else besides. I mean, especially like Rumiko Takahashi and Akira Toriyama. Like that is worldwide reach.
Yeah, I mean, there are mangaka who have passed recently who, within the anime and manga communities, there has been a lot of talk about, Kazuki Takahashi passed away, Kintaro Miura, everybody's very sad, but it's not, again, the random history account I follow did not bring it up. Again, Toriyama's influence is just, universal. And yeah, I think the manager from Kamakopia told me that he's the one who sent me the text being like, "Holy shit." Um, and I was like, "Wow, that was not on my 2024 bingo card." It was very, very unexpected. Um, I kind of just thought he'd keep going. I mean, it's just you kind of don't think about it until it happens, I
Yeah,
guess.
I was streaming Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and ARG sent me. She was in chat. She's like, "Oh, look at Discord, look at Discord," and I was just like, "It's weird to have my live reactions for that forever, like online." I guess I could delete it, but I don't know why I would delete it. Um, but well, if anybody's curious, I didn't like flip out, do a backflip, and start crying. I was just like, I was like, what? Like I just read it a couple times. I was like, okay, yeah. It's just for some reason it's not anything I expected, and I guess almost all passings are, but yeah, there was something like immortal about him, or something less immortal and more like constant. Like it just Akira Toriyama was just he just is, and I guess he still is, even though he's gone.
Kudos to him for creating Best Husband Vegeta. I
Yes.
will die on this hill. Vegeta was my tween boyfriend. He continues to be the best. Just that's it.
Kudos to him for creating Launch and Android 18, secret best waifus of the entire anime landscape.
We got Cliff in the chat with a comment. How far his influence had was crazy. I saw multiple soccer teams, sports organizations, celebrities, and different fans alike paying homage. It's very true. I guess a question I would have is like, I expect Dragon Ball Daima to continue.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much made, at least whatever first season or first series you could explain it as that. Um, who knows what to do after that? I don't know if they're actively working on him with ideas and stuff, but I don't know if there's any outlines of future, future arcs or whatever.
I wonder what they'll do with Dragon Quest.
Yeah, it's tough because anybody can, or not anybody, but like you could definitely imitate his style. You could definitely draw in his style. He has a very distinct style. That's like,
What is Dragon Quest without Akira Toriyama's monster designs and like character designs too?
yeah.
They go hand in hand. It's crazy. Well, it's not easy, but we will go ahead and move along. Yeah, rest in peace, Akira Toriyama. Okay, that will wrap up our news slash what you've been reading. I can't tell if we've been going longer or not because we had such a large break with our technical issues.
So scattershot.
But we need to we should get to our main segment. Before we do, I want to talk about what we're doing next week. Next week, we're doing a triple dip. It is not a triple dip. Triple dip is where we continue reading something we've been reading on triple dip. And so our triple dip lineup will be the 4th deluxe edition of Yokohama Kaidish Kiko, Volume 16 of Chainsaw Man, and Volume 2 of Fool Knight. Before we started recording, we decided we are going to bump off Die Dark and replace it with the next volume of Fool Knight to check that out.
I'm sorry to my waifu.
Shimada Death.
Shimada Death, and also Kyuhei Ishida. But
We might go back to it later.
yeah, I think it's time to
We
change it up.
we were all kind of like lukewarm on that volume that we read. I think it was 4 or something. We decided to swap it out for something that we'd rather take a look at, which is Full Night. Of course, Full Night Volume 2 is not physically available or even digitally available, but the chapters are available on a Viz subscription. So you'll be reading chapters 9 through 17 for Volume 2 of Full Night. Same thing with Chainsaw Man. Volume 16 is... It might be out? I don't know. It's been a while. Maybe it's out. My guess is it's not yet. Not in English, at least. But if you read on your Shonen Jump subscription, those will be chapters 134 through 143 for Volume 16 of Chainsaw Man. And then just the 4th edition collection of Yokohama Kaida Shikiko. Look forward to that Twipple Dip next week. Okay, everybody, we're going to stop recording for a second, take a quick break, and when we come back, it'll be Movie Machinations time. Okay, we are back, everybody. It's time for our first edition of Movie Machinations. And we are talking about the movie Tampopo, directed by Juzo Itami. It was released in Japan in 1985 and is referred to as a ramen western, which is a play on spaghetti western. Let me talk a little about the plot real quick. The main plot is there are 2 truck drivers, Goro and the young Gun. They stop by a shabby ramen place and they meet this widow named Tampopo. She ends up asking Goro to be trained and become the disciple so she can make good ramen and have a good ramen store. So the main plot follows Goro training Tampopo, and then they meet different people who help her make her broth, make her noodles, and by the end of the movie, she ends up being established as a good ramen joint.
Yo, spoilers.
But the thing is, this movie Tampopo is intercut with these very strange vignettes. It's the best way I can describe them. Side plots, little side dishes, if you will, that have nothing to do with the main plot, which is just really funny.
For food.
Yes, they're all connected by food. And they're very, very strange and fun. Morgana, you've talked a lot about this movie and how you love it.
Yep. One of my favorite movies of all time, I think.
I can see why. Darfox, you talked about this last year?
Yeah.
I don't remember anything you said. I'm probably like not paying attention.
I probably didn't spoil him that much if I think Morgana was in that conversation and she was like, "Oh, it's my favorite movie." So we we might have had the inkling that we might watch it one day at that point. So I don't think I said that much.
Okay, good. The thing is, people don't know, Darfox and I, and Seamus too, the podcast we did before Manga Machinations, pre-Manga Machinations, we had a segment called Movie Box, where every week we would talk about a movie that was picked by members of this forum. And they would come on, and most of the time they would be a guest, and we would discuss the movie. So this feels like we're back in our old wheelhouse, Star Fox.
It feels like a movie box in a good way because a little bit of
Oh, is
inside
this where we
baseball.
reveal that sometimes I did not watch the movie and I pretended I did and just talked about it?
No,
Like,
'cause-
Morgana, this Tampopo movie is so good and strange. I totally didn't watch it.
no. So like that other podcast we talk about was like ended up being a kind of big chore, that we didn't always want to do. Very different from Manga Machinations, which has been going on longer, and you know has its own challenges, but we're always interested. But yeah, occasionally, like watching a movie per week. And we read so much manga per week, but like we deal usually, um, but like
Says the
watching.
guy who's always crying
Yeah,
at the last minute. You're the one who's like, I just finished this 5 minutes before like we, or we're like in the first half of our podcast and you're like silently reading.
Yeah, actually, I've very rarely done that just because I can't focus that well, to do that. But yeah, like watching a movie per week, like ended up being like a pretty big chore, even though it's just like one movie. Um, but like that was years ago. Um, like we watch movies per week now all the time on Discord because we're always watching like kung fu or Johnny To movies or whatever. But like it's really it felt really exciting to watch this movie and knowing that y'all watch it too, so we could talk about it.
I'm gonna be honest, Morgana.
Yeah.
When I started this movie, I did get this kind of feeling. I was like, this is 2 hours? I can sit down for 2 hours? Okay, here we go.
Well, it's funny because we're watching, and I've seen it. This is probably my fourth, fifth time seeing it, something like that. And we took a break to go. We both had to use the bathroom, my husband and I came back. And I'm like, man, this movie keeps going, and like there are scenes we haven't seen yet that I know are coming, but I thought they were earlier. like some of those vignettes I kept waiting for. Like I'm like, oh yeah, now it's the. Oh no, it's not that one. Okay.
So let's throw to Seamus, because Seamus and I have not seen this movie. Though I do have a fun story to tell about this movie. Seamus, it was your first time watching Juzo Itami's Tampopo. What did you think?
I really liked it.
Hooray!
Hooray!
I'm glad. I thought you'd like it, but then there was also the part of me that's like, but it's about food.
About food in an interesting way.
And there's a training montage. But yeah.
Show me the manga where like a woman orgasms after getting like swapping an egg yolk, put back and forth between her and her men's
Yeah.
mouth.
I was groaning so loud during that scene. My wife did not choose to watch this with me. I think she should have. But I was just like, bruh! And she was like, what is happening? I was like, I explained it, and she was like, ugh.
Yeah, the Yakuza, those scenes are interesting. The Yakuza and his mole.
Yeah. Don in chat is saying the egg scene.
Every time I watch, I'm just like, I don't even. How is this exciting? And I like eggs, and I like raw eggs, actually. But
It's wild stuff. Seamus, you have anything else you want to mention real quickly about Tampopo before we move to somebody else? Other things
I
that
thought
stood
it
out to you?
was interesting that like the movie seemed to like have a lot of shots like a horror face on their own. And I think the only other character you ever saw that was Goro, but normally when they were together. And like, I was like, is this a John Ford thing? Like, is this part of the whole Western idea?
Maybe you could tell there were scenes, like some shots were straight out of like other westerns.
mhm.
It's very obvious. All right, I would like to give some of my thoughts.
I would like to hear them.
Okay, so the first thing I noticed as soon as you start the movie, it starts with like the Yakuza guy in the theater talking directly to the audience. And I was like, I know that guy. And it turns out there's a lot of actors in this movie that are very well known.
Mm-hmm.
So the Yakuza is Koji Yakusho. And I guess, like, yeah, I think... Have you guys ever seen the Japanese version of Shall We Dance?
No.
Yes, we saw it from Movie Box.
He's the guy from
He's
Shall We Dance.
The main dancer.
The main dancer.
Okay.
He's also in a movie that's pretty famous in the West called 13 Assassins.
I've seen that one as well.
Yeah. But I was like, oh shit, it's that guy. And then immediately, I'm like, this young guy looks super familiar. It's motherfucking Ken Watanabe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the interesting one because he definitely looks like Ken Watanabe, but like I'm so used to like aged Ken Watanabe. He's the one who's in all like these Western movies,
Right?
that
Like
film
Last
bros,
Samurai
like,
with Tom Cruise.
Yeah. And when you finally see it, you're like, oh, it's Ken Watanabe.
What was funny was my husband was joking around about how the guy who played Goro, oh, he's probably like a kid in an Akira Kurosawa film or something. And I looked up his and he was like, totally joking. And I looked up the filmography. I'm like, yeah, he's been in like two or three Kurosawa films actually.
Okay, Tsutomu Yamazaki, who played Goro, has a direct connection to Manga Machinations.
Oh.
Seamus and Darfox might remember a manga I talked about called Doin' Time. It was a manga written by somebody who was in the Japanese prison
Yes.
and doing, explaining the systems of like what's like to be in a Japanese prison. And they made a movie out of it. I had watched the movie. The movie came out in 2002. The star of that movie? Goro. Tsutomu Yamazaki.
Interesting.
Because when he showed up, I was like, I know that motherfucker too.
He has such a good face for a Western.
Yeah.
Like, just like such a chiseled, like, I don't know. Every time I look at him, I'm like, he is a perfect cowboy.
Amazing actor. And yeah, so my first experience with this movie was, oh shit, it's got all these actors I recognize. This is fun. And then it started, and then it was like, a lot of these things are funny. Some of the Yakuza things were weird, very strange. When the Yakuza got the oyster from like the diving girl, I was like, she looks young. And I had to look up her age. I was like, okay, good. She was 20 when she shot this. That's fine.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, she looks like she's like, I don't know, 14.
Yeah, she looks super young.
And I remember like some of the things that like you had all told me. Like the scene with like, I think Darfox mentioned the scene about like the man running home to his dying wife and it's like, get up, make dinner so you won't fall asleep and die.
One last time.
She makes the dinner and then she dies. So I remember I was like, when that scene started happening, I was like, oh, that's right. Or the old lady who goes into the supermarket and starts touching everything.
Oh, old lady.
I remember Darfox talking about that. But here's the thing. The vignette with the spaghetti, the pasta, and the slurping,
Yeah.
I've seen that before.
That clip?
And this is pre-YouTube. I think I saw it back home when I was, still growing up. So my parents might have owned this movie? I don't know. But I distinctly remember seeing that scene of the slurping. And then, the Japanese instructor lady is like, you must not make any sound while eating noodles, or you will be, people will be upset at you in foreign countries. I was like, use the spoon. And then, first of all, I was thinking, okay, using a fork and spoon to eat pasta, first of all, is now like, that's what you teach kids. Yep. Adults don't do that. I'm sure I was thinking like Morgana probably had things to say about this.
My uncle, up until, as far as I know, he still uses a spoon whenever he eats his spaghetti. And I've been trying to teach my daughter how to do it. She's like, screw this spoon. She goes right to like twirling it on her fork.
She's like the foreigner who just starts slurping everything.
Oh yeah, no,
it's really funny.
I'm the same way. I like, twirl like a gigantic mass of spaghetti and shove it in my mouth because that's the real way to do it, obviously.
Maximum spaghetti.
Yep.
I also thought of another Manga Machinations connection to this. When Goro and Tampopo start training,
Hold on. It's crazy. Hold on.
Okay, sorry, we had another technical hiccup, but we're back. What I was saying is, I noticed the connection from Tampopo and Goro and Turbo going to go see the homeless people. I was like, this is just a reference to Gen, the homeless guy from Oishimbo. It has to be.
The homeless guy in Oshimbo. I don't remember which.
Did we read that one?
It might not have been featured in the one of the collections we looked at, but he's a famous character where like the main character Shiro goes and it's like, here Yamaoka-san, come with me and let's meet this homeless man. And this homeless man, just happens to know all like the good restaurants in the area and know all the ins and outs of everybody.
Okay.
And I checked the date too. Oishimbo came out prior to this.
I see you, Juzo Itami, big nerd. The woman who played Tampopo, by the way, it was his wife.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yes.
Juzo Itami's wife?
Yes. I was looking at her because I was saying to my husband, like, one thing I like about Tampopo is that, like, she's obviously pretty, but she looks like somebody's mom. Like, she's like normal pretty, Like, I really appreciate it. They kind of tease her about that a little bit in the movie, which I felt was unnecessary.
They got the Yakuza guy's mistress, and she's like, straight up.
Oh, bad.
Okay, sorry, we're still dealing with technical problems. I just said, like, the Gen character from Oishimbo is probably from, it's a reference in this Tampopo movie. And Morgana, you're talking about Juzo Itami's wife,
Yes.
Nobuko Miyamoto.
Yes.
Normal pretty.
Normal pretty, but she looks like somebody's mom because she's somebody's mom. My husband's like, and that one crooked little tooth she has in the front. I'm like, I know, it's so cute.
She was great.
She's very charming. She is really cute and really believable. And honestly, like, okay, at some point during this, I was like, okay, so this is not a feminist film, and I don't think anybody thinks it is.
I mean, it's from the 1985, so
yeah, but it's very charming. I think it's a really good example of the kind of film that it is, right? And it's a movie that it's a movie about food and appetite. I think is a good, because there's a lot of like kind of sexual stuff too, and also just like, I don't know, like desire and life and sex. It's a good, I don't know. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot of layers, I think, to a movie that is more or less just a silly comedy. I think it's a really good homage to film and filmmaking and the kinds of things you can do with a script and with, with actors. It's really funny. It's just really funny and weird and great. I don't know. I've already told you this is one of my favorite films. I'm just gonna gush about it. So,
there's a lot of things I want to say. So the vignette about the guys trying to con each other.
Yes, the professor.
So I thought that was very funny because they're eating Peking duck. The thing is, the word for like mark, like when you're doing a car job and oh, that's your mark, or the sucker, in Japanese is kamo, which is the same word for duck, and they're eating Peking duck.
oh, that's so good. See, that's a layer you don't get if
That's
you
some manga crafting right there.
Yeah, baby.
movie crafting.
Well, one thing I really like about this movie because it's a very you said it's not a feminist movie, and I don't I really I think it really isn't, but there is a universal quality to this because it is about food and everybody eats.
Mm-hmm.
But also you see different people in the vignettes, and you see what food means to them. The Yakuza guy, it's a lot of like the excess and a lot of like just like the luxury of it, like just really indulging, like the indulgence of like food and different foods and how you're gonna eat it. And his dying breath was like, "Let's go hunt boars so that we can make sausage out of their yam intestines." You know, like a very specific, unique thing. But he
That
heard
sounded gross, by the way.
I mean, he heard
I don't
about
know. That sounded. I was like, yeah, that could be pretty nice.
it.
Wouldn't there be a lot of bile in there? Intestines
Delicious
at the
Yeah,
same
but
time?
bile.
that's the intestines, not the stomach.
Okay.
So he's about just like the indulgence, and to the point where it gets like kind of taboo. It's like it's not comfortable to like, you know, maybe general audiences, right? I think most people were probably kind of like wincing or cringing when they're watching like the sex scene, even though it's like dealing with like boobs and sucking boobs, which is universally liked by everybody.
Those
It-
those those living
Everyone-
shrimp on her stomach, and she's like laughing about it.
Yeah, I'm just watching those shrimp like they're dying.
what's it, was that? Is that just because they put them in alcohol? Is that why they're freaking the fuck out? Like I don't know anything about
I
that.
think the lack of oxygen.
Oh.
They're also being sealed off, but maybe also alcohol.
I mean, they're alive, so
Yeah,
yeah.
that-
There's a Chinese dish called drunk shrimp, and you douse the shrimp in booze,
right.
and then they get drunk and they get quiet, and then it's easy to handle them when you cook them.
That's fucking crazy though. Food is crazy. Like
Did they actually kill a turtle?
Yes.
In the, okay.
Yep,
that was
Mhm.
definitely
that
a
was
turtle.
nuts.
I was looking at it and I was like, yeah, that looks like they just like slit the head of a turtle.
Yeah, there was no way to fake that one.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of disturbing to me. But at the
Mhm.
same time, like animals
I
get
mean, they're gonna
slaughtered.
prepare that and eat it, so
Yeah,
that's what you have to do.
animals I've eaten have gone and slaughtered in way more inhumane ways
hmm
than the guy quickly like slicing its fucking spine or whatever he did when he cut it open.
That's also to preserve the blood so you can drink it.
yeah.
Mm.
It
It tastes like blood,
Vampire.
apparently.
tastes like sorry what?
Shocking.
I've never, sorry, it's a delicacy in Japan. I've never had a soft shell turtle, though.
Sorry, I'm just crying about this turtle. I just like
I
You
know.
get like
kinda
soft shell turtle blood sausage.
No, I think they usually just split the blood with wine most of the time to drink it. Because you're supposed to drink it fresh before it, like, coagulates.
That's some vampire ass shit.
it is.
That is gothic.
Listen, apparently, like, soft shell turtle hot pot is one of the most delicious things in the world. Like, the broth is supposed to be insanely delicious. Again, I've never had it. Turtles are a guardian creature in my wife's family, so
Yeah, I am very open-minded to eating a lot of foods. Turtle is one of those things that I feel like I can't eat morally more than like I'm not grossed out by the idea of it. I just feel like I can't eat a turtle. They're like I don't know, important.
Yeah.
all right, Morgan, I'm gonna throw out a bunch of animals. Get ready. Here's your gauntlet. Whale.
No, see, that's also a moral thing. If I was with like a native tribe, like an Inuit tribe, or like a tribe that eats these foods, like whale, I might try it, but I'm not gonna go out of my way to try whale. No,
Horse.
I'd eat horse
Okay, why is a whale not okay and a horse is?
because whales have been overfished and are endangered. Horses are plentiful, and I don't see the difference necessarily between eating a horse and eating a cow.
What if I
Morally-
told you there was 2 chapters in Oishinbo about how like it's the whale population is actually coming back, and
I did-
America is the one that whales more than Japan?
Yeah, okay, first of all, I don't know if I believe that. Second of all, I think it's just one of those things that's instilled in my brain. Like even if it's true that they're back, like I can't like to me, they've been overfished, they're endangered, I can't eat them.
Yeah, I've had whale once, and it was pretty good. But then I thought to myself, I don't really need to eat this compared to other things.
Actually, why do you need to eat pork?
Because it's so good, man! Have you had chashu in your life? Chashu is so good. Oh, that's one thing I want to mention about the ramen that they displayed here in Tampopo. Not appetizing.
Really?
Because it's old school ramen, man. It's like ramen from the 80s.
Yeah,
That ramen is so outdated now.
It's not fashionable
Oh,
ramen.
okay. So like, what's ramen then? Like, what's the big difference been since then?
It's mostly like the topping, the change of like the type of toppings, and also the broth choice. Back in the 80s and during that time period, and it's known as Showa, the Showa era of Japan. They call it Showa ramen. It's like a shoyu-based broth. First of all, I like a
shoyu.
miso ramen, baby.
Oh no, I like shoyu.
You and my wife, Morgana. I'm a miso boy, so I like miso ramen, and I like fatty tonkotsu miso ramen, so like pork bones broth.
I like shoyu broth. I like there's a place in Cambridge here in the Boston area. They have this broth that they must have like 3,000 chicken feet soaking in there because the collagen is like out of control. It's so fatty. Yeah, it's really, really good. I love that. I like yuzu shoyu. I've had that before with like yuzu, and I like ramen. Actually, the thing that my husband and I both went, that looks good, was that scene where there's the old man who's not supposed to be eating all this food, and he just takes a big chomp out of like this giant piece of mochi.
Oh, and the yeah.
Yeah, and we were both
Oshiriko.
like, yeah, we were like, oh, that looks so good.
Dar, you know what that is? Oshiriko?
It looked like a sweet.
Yep, it is. You take red azuki beans, and you cook them down, and you sugar them, and then inside you add a piece of mochi. That scene where you choke down the mochi, that's a real thing that happens, especially for old people.
Hazard. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a dense
It's a gooey
thing of mochi, and it can get stuck and clog up your breathing tube.
You could tell he did get a big chunk of that.
It's so good. When I went to Japan, I was in Nara and I had ramen at this place. It was like a pretty basic ramen, just like some chicken, but it had mochi in it, and it was so good because it soaked up like the broth and everything.
Oh yeah,
and
it's the best.
I have not been able to find a single ramen place in the US that does that. They just don't put mochi in their ramen. And I'm like,
Morgana.
What?
Go to the Asian market. They will sell mochi.
Yeah, no, I
in
have
squares. And this is what you do. When you make instant ramen at home, when you put the water in the pot, put that mochi block inside. By the time the water is boiling, and then you add your noodles, and the noodles are cooked in 3 minutes, that mochi will be at the perfect consistency.
Oh man, these are some hot tips.
Don't overcook mochi though, because it will dissolve.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah. You know, when that old man was eating that mochi, all that stuff, and he got a namban soba, which is like duck and grilled scallion soba, and then the tempura soba. There was no tempura, there was no duck. Those two bowls were just filled with soba. And I was like, this is a lie. I'm being lied to.
It's expensive. They gotta film this shit.
I will say, I didn't know this, but when they filmed this movie, Juzo Itami, the director, they created the job position of food stylist.
Oh, interesting.
Makes sense.
Because before that, they would just have like props people prepare food, right? But because they needed the ramen to look a certain way, they needed to find an egg yolk that wouldn't pop after being transferred from mouth to mouth for a while. Izumi Ishimori is the person who was the food stylist on this movie, and she talks about how she might have been like the first food stylist for a film production ever. It's pretty interesting.
Nice. Yeah, this movie makes me so hungry.
Even the dentist scene.
Well, I mean, not that one specifically. Although I love the follow up to that with the kid with the fucking carrot around his neck and the sign that's like, "Don't give this kid any sugar. He only eats natural foods." And the dude's like, "Have some fucking ice cream, kid."
Yep.
I was like, "Yeah, mood," but also like, why are you giving food to strange children on the street?
Yeah, and especially ice cream you're already like
Yep.
knobbed on.
With your nasty abscess tooth.
I will say one weak point in this movie was Turbo, the kid who played like Tampopo's son.
Oh yeah.
And like his acting felt like he was trying to be like an adult actor.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of barely there anyway.
That's why they beat him up in the movie. Stop acting like an adult. Just like.
Oh, I do have one big negative in this movie.
Mm.
So after they meet like the ramen master at the beggars camp, they're leaving the beggars camp. This is after the one beggar takes like Turbo, and they break into like the the kitchen to make like omelet rice.
Yeah.
All that ketchup on that rice, delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they leave, and as they leave, they start singing. Listen.
Oh.
The main guy who starts singing at the beginning has some bullshit machine gun vibrato, and I was like, come on, man. Why you gotta have vibrato like that? That's bad. But, when the rest of them started singing the men's choir, it was pretty good. Except they weren't together.
They're hobos, man.
Whatever.
They're doing pretty good.
Except for that main guy.
Leave him alone. He can't help it.
You can help machine gun vibrato. You can always help machine gun vibrato. That's my only complaint. Besides that, it was a wonderful, weird-ass movie that I really enjoyed.
So, the man in white, the Yakuza at the beginning, asks you what you're eating. What did you guys eat while you were watching this movie?
I had that strawberry shortcake that my wife got for my birthday
Delicious.
that I mentioned earlier. Listen, and it's like I said, I can't stand American supermarket sheet cake. This is Japanese style. The cake part was fluffy. The whipped cream is nice. There's still half of that cake in the fridge. I might go eat some right after this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was eating some cake.
I was planning on having my chicken wraps while making at home, but I was like I was dealing with my parents. I was having to like help them fix their dinner. So I put like some tortillas in the toaster oven to like warm them up, but they ended up getting like hard and brittle, so you couldn't bend them. Because I left there too much time. So I was planning on just making them and taking them to my room and watching and eating. That was literally my plan. But then I was like, I had just like these hard brittle tortillas that I just kind of ate like a tostada sort of. I just basically ate it with a knife and fork, everything. So I ate that and then watched the movie afterwards.
Seamus, did you have a snack?
No, I ate nothing.
How can you do that? I said to my husband beforehand, I'm like, we need a snack. And I had been craving all week one of those, those big fuck off chocolate chunk cookies that are like the size of your face.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted one of those. My husband had to go to the grocery store anyway and did not find one of those, but he did find like a bag of like this, like the store bakery made like chocolate chunk cookies. And they weren't that big, but they were pretty sizable, like 2.5-inch diameter, like big chocolate chunk cookies. I think I ate 4 of them, which some regrets about that. I definitely was like, oh, so much sugar, so many cookies. But I did not regret having them because then I was not starving while watching all the food on the damn screen. Because every single time we watch this, I'm like, oh no, I'm hungry. So that food stylist did her job, man. Making me
She did.
hungry.
I'm trying to remember where I laughed the hardest.
Oh man.
I was definitely grossed out and shocked the most about the egg yolk passing scene.
Yes, that is a weird one, and every single time it's weird. I love the scene where they're trying to figure out how the noodles at this one place is made, and they're eating the noodles, and every time the get to the end of the noodle, it makes that little whoop sound.
Yes.
But only in that scene, despite the fact they eat ramen throughout the whole movie. Whoop, whoop.
I did really enjoy the scene where it's the business meeting
Yes.
and
that-
none
that
of
was right
them know
before the
what to
spaghetti.
order, and then they just copy the one guy's order until they get the young upstart who's just supposed to like be there, and he's like a foodie who actually can read French.
He like knows where like the chef probably learned how to do this thing and all this like really deep food knowledge.
And then like they colored in the faces of everyone else to beat red.
So good.
Very good.
I like that when the old patron was choking on his mochi, they grabbed the shop vac and like sucked it out of his.
That's another scene that like it went on for it was a long shot without any breaks.
That's one of this movie's MOs, and it might just be the style of the time, but like there's like towards the end when they're like testing her ramen, you just watch them eat a bowl of ramen, like all 5 of them. It takes like a good 5 minutes each time or something. They just do that like 2 or 3 times in a row. They're just like sitting there eating ramen, like no cuts.
But they do like play with the light in the background.
Yes.
They do it in a few scenes where it's like there's like always something happening, even if they're like same in the diner where you've got the trains and all in the background, like something there to kind of give a bit of variation.
I loved all the shots.
Remember, I think it was a scene with the dying housewife where the train was passing by the window, and there was like this almost like an isometric view of the train, and you could so clearly see everybody in the train as it passed by. It looked like it was a miniature, but it was real because it had like real actors. There was something about that shot that looked really unique, that you don't normally see, and I don't know if because it was all black around it too, so maybe it was filmed on like a soundstage or something. But just like the way the lighting looked and the perspective of it was just really interesting to look at. And that whole like housewife scene was just like weird and funny and just tragic, and
it's so dark. Yeah.
because like it's sad. It's almost like you see whatever you want to see in it. Like you could almost see it as like this sweet thing, as like like the housewife like giving them one last meal, and them super appreciating through tears. But then also it's just like really fucked up that like he literally yells her out of her deathbed to go cook one last meal. It's like the most fucked up thing ever. And it's just like he's clearly doing it out of like this just extreme sadness. It's not like he's angry with her, but
he's trying to keep her alive.
Like her like it's like her role was to make the food at the house, and I'm sure so much more because she's a freaking housewife. But yeah, it's a very interesting scene.
She dies, and then the husband and one daughter are like, "Ah," and the other 2 kids are just like, whatever.
Yeah.
Zero acting happening. Oh, I have a question. The supermarket scene with the old lady squeezing the peaches. When she enters the supermarket, the manager is at the desk, and he's doing something weird.
Like blowing air into his mouth or something.
It's like it was like a mist spray into his mouth.
Aerosol, yeah.
What the fuck was that?
I think it's what's called an atomizer for like perfume. I don't know what he was spraying into his mouth, but
he was perfuming.
It was like he was trying to moisturize his mouth or something, like humidify his mouth.
I'll mention when your man got treated in the dentist, like one of the nurses there was just like almost giving him like a flirty look.
Yeah,
She was
like
just like
very, very horny.
yeah, and it was just very much like, what the fuck's going on here? There were definitely was a bit of just like there's just stuff going on here in the background. You just kind of like notice, and you're like, that's a bit weird.
That's why I was saying this movie, it's not really just about food, it's about appetite. There's a lot of sex. Because there's that scene where, there's the old woman squeezing the peaches, and the manager comes over and he lifts up the peach, and this like single drop drops
Goes through
between
the
the
crease.
two. Yeah. And my husband goes, Is this like naughty? Is this like a naughty scene? Is this a sex thing? And I was like, they all are. They are all about sex and food and life and death and it's just they're, because what is more vital than eating, consuming? I mean, we need to do it to live, right? We don't need to have sex to live, but we do need it to propagate, right? So there's a whole I feel like, again, this is a very silly movie in a lot of ways. It's a comedy, but in a lot of ways it's also very like, I don't know. I don't want to call it deep. I don't think that's really the word I'm looking for, but like there are layers here. There's a lot of thought
Definitely.
I think went into a lot of, the what's going on here.
Oh yeah.
There are layers, and there's also a lot of ways to connect to the film. Even though it's all food, it's like every single facet. It's almost like they a group of like 5 or 6 people sat down and say, okay, let's just think about every single facet of food and food eating and preparation and eating with friends and stuff like that you can think of.
Is that not like what like the metaphor of building Tampopo was? Where like they're like,
Yes.
you get all your people together, they all have their expertise. Even the guy who's like, oh no, we need to like, is it raise up the counter and like widen it out a bit?
Yeah. His name was Pisken, which I never heard that name ever.
Like
Or
Snake Plissken?
I was going to talk about random things. It's like when your man Goro leaves, like he seems like the most distraught about him leaving. He's like running after the truck and all.
Yeah.
He reminded me of like the kid who like chases after like the cowboy who leaves town after saving the day.
Yeah.
It's so good, that shot.
Well, you see, they had a manly confrontation.
Yes.
They were now bro rivals, and he's just taking off. And how is Peaskin supposed to understand his own masculinity without this dude around?
That was a great like fist fight, by the way. Like
so good.
It was partially
Underneath
silhouetted.
the bridge, the one shot that's like all in shadow.
Yeah.
I love at the beginning when they get in a fight and like Goro flicks a Naruto onto his face. Iconic shot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the music in this is really great. Really great soundtrack and very effective like background music. It's done by Kunihiko Murai. I was very impressed.
And really effective silences.
Yes. Some places that with no sound, yeah.
Yeah, like at the end when they're all eating the ramen and there's no music, there's just the eating sounds. Slurping. My husband was like, the Foley guys must have like 3,000 different kinds of slurping noises that they have to make.
Morgana, you slurp your noodles?
Hell yeah, I slurp my fucking noodles.
Dar, do you know how to slurp noodles?
I think I do.
Seamus, do you know? Does Seamus know?
No, I don't think I don't slurp my noodles.
Oh.
Not that I'm aware of, anyway. I don't know if it's ever something I was ever.
I do not make slurping noises like they do in this film. If that's the question, no.
What I really want to be able to do is make that little whoop sound.
Whoop.
Oh, I remember why I laughed the most, or where I laughed the most. It was at the Yakuza dying scene. Because he makes that whole monologue about those yam stuffed intestines, and his mistress is crying. He's like, yeah, we're gonna go. He's like, oh. And the music swells, and then it just like circle cuts. Yeah. Interrupts it. And I laughed really loud when that happened. Okay. Feel like I've said everything I have to say about Tampopo. Also, I'm terrified the Mumble server is going to die again.
I know. I don't know. I feel like I'm just really excited we all watched it. I was glad to watch it again. It's been a while. Yeah, I think I told you guys when I told my husband that we were going to be watching Tampopo. I sent him a text like, "We're watching Tampopo for next week." He goes, "Oh, baller!" We both love this movie. Did you guys watch the YouTube video I sent you to accompany this?
No. Oh, I totally forgot. I'm sorry.
Wait, where
Oh
did
my
you
God.
send it? Shit.
On in the admin chat. So it's fine. You can watch it later, but it's this like weird comedic little thing about the correct way to eat sushi. It's a Japanese video, but it's so stupid, and it's one of those weird things that my husband and I watch all the time. But he put it on after the movie. I was like, oh yeah, the guys need to see this. But there's this bit where they're telling you the proper way to like pour sake, and I don't know. It's very funny. It's really silly.
That reminded me, there's like this old Guinness ad about like the way to pour perfect pints. That someone then like basically put up on their like YouTube live stream and like talked through and like made fun of in a way where it's just like because I think one of the last things to do is to like drink the pint, but you're pouring it as the bartender. So like the way it's worded, it's like you're drinking the pint you just poured for someone else. It's like drink and you like look to the horizon. It's just like you're pouring a pint of Guinness here. Like what the fuck are you on about?
Oh, I think you showed me that video actually.
I might have, yeah.
That sounds familiar. The look to the horizon bit.
Oh my God. Morgana.
Mm-hmm.
I just glanced at that video you sent.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sushi place here called Kurukuru Sushi. It's a conveyor belt sushi place. And on the screen, they play a video that's like this. It's like, how do you eat sushi?
But
How
is
do you
it
prepare the sushi rice?
but is it like entirely satire? Because this is entirely satire.
Okay, no, it's serious.
No, this is extremely not serious.
Okay.
In every way, this is not serious. It tells you like the degrees, like you that you're supposed to fold the noren when you walk into the like. It's absurd. Like
So it's like at the beginning of the Tampopo where the one guy's talking about
yes,
move your pork to the side and then stare at it and touch it with
Yes.
your chopsticks.
Do
It's
you
like,
know?
what the fuck is this?
Do you know that every single time we go for ramen, my husband's like, "Have you contemplated your pork yet?" Like every single time.
Have you
Oh my
apologized?
God.
Have
I was
you
Have you
watching that part
apologized?
thinking, man, fuck this. I just want to slurp my noodles immediately.
It's so funny. I mean, every single time we go for and also like and there's stuff in this little video that I sent. There's like again the scene where they're telling you the correct way to pour, and they're saying, "Oh, whoever's the junior has to pour." And when you pour, you must say "ma ma ma ma," and the person receiving the drink must say "o to to to," and there's just them going back and forth "ma ma 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 o to to to." And so anytime one of us pours a drink for the other one, "ma ma 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 o to to to." It's stupid. It's extremely stupid. But it's just one of those like much like the scene at the beginning of this where they're talking about the appropriate way to eat ramen. The absurd appropriate way to have sushi video
If
is
Starfox ever comes to Hawaii, I can do this with him. Ma 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 ma.
Oh,
"o to to to."
Is the master in the beginning reading that book? Is that the same actor that plays a homeless ex chef?
I don't think so. I thought so at first, and then I was like, no, they look different.
They kind of have a similar like
Yeah.
soft voice that I can remember in my head. But that was Ken Watanabe, right? He was like self-inserting in the story, or was he different too? Because
No, that was Ken Watanabe self-inserting himself. Yeah.
Did anybody else, when it got to the end credits and it was breastfeeding, where you're like, oh, of course, literally like the last piece of the puzzle? It's like
The first meal anyone ever has in their life.
I turned to my husband and was like, yeah, you don't see enough of this these days, right? I have to say, that baby's a little bit younger than my current baby. Is an extremely well-behaved breastfeeding child.
Yeah, and he never stopped, never looked away, never did nothing.
Never. I mean, there was a little bit of like leg movement, but like, I mean, when I tell you, I get slapped, scratched, fingers put in my mouth. I mean, like, breastfeeding is not for the faint of heart. I actually, I really kind of love that scene, except that it gets really, really, really close.
Yeah.
Big zoom right on that titty.
Enhance.
Yeah,
Enhance.
but I kind of love it, and but again, it kind of ties back to ideas about appetite, both food and I don't want to say that it's sexual because I don't find breastfeeding sexual, but the idea of procreating and feeding a child with your body is also a very like basic human thing, so I kind of love that. But yeah, we're sitting there watching it going, and I'm like, man, that woman doesn't have a single scratch on her breast. My son right now, he likes to just slap my tit while he's just like, come on, like get the rest of it out. So yeah, that's a very well behaved child.
Yeah, that's a casting agency baby right there. That's a
It wasn't the food stylist.
high in demand baby.
I want to know if they like shot that all in one or they had to like do several feedings. Like he didn't pull off, he didn't like look around, It's like
Yeah, there was a couple of like crossfades, so they could have like tastefully stitched it together. But that really felt like the final piece of the puzzle, where it's like that's the one thing this movie needed, is like the one depiction of food and like nourishment and sustenance. This is the most human movie.
A very nice star.
Also,
there
licking the
anything
blood
else?
off your man's mouth.
I didn't make it.
Did you guys hear that?
No.
oh no, what?
Seamus, you guys say it again.
Licking the food off the man's mouth.
Yeah.
My thought, I thought that is like, they're not worrying about AIDS here.
No.
I'm telling you, man. When that scene started with the oyster, I was like, that girl looks young. That girl looks young.
Yeah.
I think she's supposed to be young. I think she's supposed to be underage. I think it's very much supposed to be like a
First sexual awakening.
Yeah, like a corruption slash. That's more of like his taboo angle, where it's like she wasn't the same.
Corruption there. Very, very Catholic of you there now.
Yeah.
It all comes back.
Corruption in some people's eyes.
I just love the horde of like women in the water just staring. That's nice public scene of intimacy here.
They don't care about PDA.
Is there anything else that we did not mention? I feel like we covered almost everything.
Oh, the like clothing for all the like the four guys. Like the one guy with like, he was like almost like a chauffeur looking guy. Goro, his character was all in white, and like Piskin had a whole, I don't know what he's look. He looked almost like with the,
like Oliver Twist or something.
I don't know what you call that cap in America. It's not really a pedicab, but it's kind of like that kind of like, yeah, like the Paperboy, like you're right, like from like the 1940s.
The Newsy.
The Newsy, exactly. I think they give it a very like out of like, even some of the music and all I felt was very almost like, it's like they talk about like a Western thing, but like they all felt like them like pulling from the past. Some of that stuff.
Yeah, good weird movie, Morgana. No notes.
Yes.
Except for Machine Gun Bravado.
All right. But you're always gonna have that criticism. Just want to also one more thing. Wearing his hat in the bath. That scene where Goro is taking a bath after he and Tampopo go on a date, and he's just wearing his goddamn cowboy hat in the bath. It's so funny. I don't know why. It's just so funny to me.
That was followed up of like him like looking at her underwear.
And her looking at his.
Yep. Her she could have grabbed the underwear from like the tip. She grabbed that shit.
I
She-
really appreciate
she,
that
like,
it didn't end up
chunked.
in a romance.
They did and didn't. Yeah. Well, he did
Yeah.
that. He did that cowboy thing where he left town. He can't be tied down by no woman.
You don't know how to be happy. You don't know how to just be in a
He already had that life and it didn't work out. He had that speech about his wife and his kids that left him.
Ridiculous macho bullshit.
Yep.
I love him, but
But Piskin was holding that hand, but not in a way like I want to fight you. He's like, we really did it, right? We did it.
manly rivals.
Yep. Unless anyone has anything else to say, I think we can close out our first edition of Movie Machinations.
I think this is a rousing success, and I'm glad you guys enjoyed it.
I mean, besides this recording session has been hell.
Well, yes, but
Yes.
I don't know how I'm going to piece this together. Fuck.
the manga gods were like, "How dare you!"
Yep.
They can't hold
It's
us
okay.
down.
It's okay. Next week, we're back to our usual stuff, but yeah. Let us go ahead and end this episode. I want to thank Darfox, Morgana, and Seamus for joining me. Shout out to the people in the chat. Tyler, Don, Cliff. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed Manga Machinations, make sure you subscribe to us, review us, rate us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else you can find us. Please write us some reviews. We're still waiting for new reviews. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/MangaMacTV. It's where we record our podcast live. There might be a lot of fun outtakes that were not in the actual recording that you could check out for this episode. Check out our website as well, mangamachinations.com. Our Tumblr is mangamachinations.tumblr.com. If you want to support us, buy us a coffee, head over to ko-fi.com/mangamac. Come join us on our Discord, discord.me/mangamac. We're still playing Mahjong every Monday, and we're looking for more people to join us, so send us a message over on our Discord. Send emails over to mangamachinations@gmail.com. You can follow us on social media at MangaMac Podcast. That's Manga MAC Podcast. And that's for Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, Threads, everything else. You can also follow my personal social media at Dakazu. Follow Darfox at Darfox8. Follow Morgana at MorganaRelina. And follow Seamus at Seamus2389. Remember, Seamus is spelled without an H. Don't forget, next week we are going to be doing a triple dip, and we'll be reading Fool Night, Volume 2. That's chapters 9 through 17. Chainsaw Man, Volume 16. Chapters 134 to 143. And the 4th deluxe edition of Yokohama Kaida Shikiko. Alright, everyone, thank you so much for listening to us this week. Bye-bye. Eat some ramen.